70% of young Aussies never think they'll own a home. Let's have a look. Hello everyone, Florian here, and welcome to another episode of HeiseSays. Grab your stein of coffee because I want to look at this article, which frankly is a really concerning issue. This is going to drive a lot of people, a lot of young Australians, hard left. You want to own a home. You want people to be independent. You want people to have control over their own lives and lift up their social status. You don't want them to be constantly dependent on the state or expecting others to take care of them or to be jealous. This, combined with the tall poppy culture we have here in Australia, it's not looking good, guys. We need to increase home ownership among young people. You're going to have a population decrease because people won't have kids. So let's look at this, guys. More than 70% of young people believe they'll never be able to buy a home. And well, you can't blame them for expecting this. Look at the price increases. Let's just have a look here. Let's look at my city, guys, because it's just the stupidest with asking prices in Brisbane. We'll wait for that to reload. There you go. I mean, look at that delta change. Okay? There you go. That's the COVID magic working right there, guys. All that government intervention right there. I mean, sorry. I mean, everyone who bought in Brisbane is a property genius. Buy my course on Facebook now, bro. It's all good, property magic. It's called, buy a time machine. Almost 3/4 of young Australians believe they'll never be able to buy a home, as confidence in the housing market has flatlined over the past year despite house prices falling over the same period. Well, yeah, it's fallen over the last year, but it's insignificant compared to the increase that we've gotten. They must be feeling hopeless. Hopeless. I mean, here's the thing. If Australia entered into a conflict, what young men are going to want to go and defend the country? You're treated like, if you're a young white man, you're treated like shit. You're discriminated against in jobs. Everyone blames you for everything. You can't even afford to buy a house. An exclusive survey shows that a growing majority of people believe that the Australian dream is unreachable for the young, and that state and federal governments need to launch radical interventions in the housing market to make home ownership affordable again. They've missed the point. We don't need radical intervention. When the government creates the problem, you don't ask for more government to fix the problem. This is what's happening here. Radical intervention. Well, let's see what the intervention is. Maybe it's to radically increase supply and government to get rid of the red tape and allow more projects to happen quicker. What do you think? I'll have a shot of coffee. Let me know if I'm dreaming. It'll be shared equity. It'll be shared equity. The findings will heighten debate about how to solve the housing affordability crisis after Australians were hit with the largest fall in real wages on record this month, and interest rates soared to a 10-year high. The new survey conducted by Resolve Strategic for this masthead shows 63% of Australians now believe that the young will never be able to buy a home, compared to 57% a year ago. Okay, wait. 70% of young people believe they'll never own a home. 63% think they'll never be. Oh boy. The results are more stark when young people answer for themselves, with 72% of respondents between the ages of 18 and 34 saying they will never be able to buy a house. I'm not in the demo anymore, guys. I'm out of the demo. Damn. When you're filling out a form, you check the box. What age group you are. When you have to check another box. It's tough. This is despite prices for dwellings falling 12.1% in Sydney. But that doesn't mean anything. It's because it's jumped up an insane amount. Grattan Institute Economic Policy Director Brendan Coates said, and you've got to remember the Grattan Institute, they're pro-lockdowns. Okay, that's their agenda, their extreme government intervention. Said most people were less confident about purchasing their first home because their capacity to borrow money had fallen by more than the decline in house prices. And it's going to get even worse now with interest rates going up. He said, this was caused by the rise in the cash rate along with the government-regulated serviceability buffer. There you go, APRA. But APRA will change the rules again to ensure credit isn't squeezed out. But they'll keep the dirty first homers out of the market. We don't want them owning houses. It'll just be the investors that have multiple properties. Banks have to assess people's borrowing capacity at 3% higher than the current borrowing rate. While the borrowing rate sitting at just 5%, they're being assessed on whether they can pay the loan at 8%, Coates said. Adding, the problem was only going to get worse with people to be assessed at a borrowing rate of more than 9% after additional rate rises this year. Well, should we get rid of that? There's a question for you watching the show, guys. Should we get rid of that? Should APRA step away? Should there be a free market allowing the banks to take risk? But that's not what we want in Australia. So many people want government regulation, government intervention. You saw here. They're bitching and moaning. They want radical interventions in the housing market from the government. Yet right here, one of the issues that's causing struggling people to get in is these radical interventions into the housing market. We don't have a free market economy here in Australia. It's centrally planned to a degree. There's free elements of it. But people would rather keep Aussies out of homes for all of these benefits they want. They want the security of the banks that they're not going to fall over. They want these buffers in place. They want all of these environmental interventions mandatory in houses. They want accessible houses now. It all sounds good and it's all nice, but all of this stuff increases the cost. Nothing comes without a cost. And now we're starting to see a generation that they're hopeless with the idea of they've lost all hope with even the prospect of owning a home. Coates said the fact that people's real incomes have fallen to where they were in 2010 was also affecting how much first home buyers could put towards a mortgage, because the cost of the essentials they need to buy has gone up faster than their income. The survey also showed a 3% increase in the number of people who said they had been priced out of the market over the past year. When asked why they were renting a house, 49% of the respondents said they had been priced out of the market, while just 17% said they had chosen not to buy a house, and 27% said they were confident of buying in the next decade. When asked to name policies to address the crisis, respondents in the poll favoured government intervention over tweaking tax concessions such as negative gearing and capital gains discounts. 70% of respondents supported the rent-to-buy schemes, where renters have the right to buy their accommodation at the end of their lease. Awesome. While 2/3 of respondents supported investing government funds in building housing and planning regulations to force new developments to include a proportion of low-cost housing. How do the people think this is paid for? How much tax is hoovered out of your money every paycheck? Where do you think it's going? Coates said tinkering with negative gearing and capital gains tax discounts would have a modest effect on house prices. He said he believed both the Commonwealth and states would come under pressure from voters to directly intervene in the market by developing their own affordable housing projects. I mean, could they do it? They probably could. I mean, the one advantage the government would have is they could put stock on the market that just wouldn't be feasible for other people to do, for other developers to do. They'd be running it at a loss. So you'd get them building little 2-bedder starter homes, dirt cheap, modular, volumetric modular, screw pier, screw pile them in, boom, boom, one module, boom, 1 bedroom, 1 bathroom, that's it. And then you extend out from that as you go. But I can't see people willing to make that sacrifice and living like that. Maybe they will, if you own it yourself. But what about the not in my backyard crowd? They'll be bitching and moaning, we don't want a donger in our neighborhood, it's too precious. Ho, ho, ho. It wouldn't surprise me if we see the Commonwealth, but particularly state governments, going down that path, he said. Housing is a ticking time bomb. Well, the states need to pull the councils in line. This is the problem. You've got the states and you've got feds, states, and the councils all with conflicting agendas, causing issues in the housing sector. The feds pretty much can just throw money at it, and that just inflates it. And the councils, They'll limit development. They'll limit it. No one wants a development, not in my backyard. Housing is a ticking time bomb in the sense that it's going to create an enormous amount of political angst for governments in the year or two ahead. The Housing Industry Association chief economist Tim Reardon said there had been a significant increase in the cost of in the cost of lending to first home buyers since the GFC, and the 3% buffer was discouraging banks from approving more mortgages. That is the reason why it is much harder to become a homeowner now than it was when interest rates were 18% in the 1980s, he said. Reardon said changes to negative gearing on capital gains tax will only make the situation worse. You can't make housing cheaper by increasing taxes on housing. They need to make it easier for people to build. Home buying hopeful, Keandra McDonald, 28, said she and her friends felt the property market had become almost impossible to navigate. I've had friends talk to me like, hey, do you want to go in together to buy a house? The South Yarra renter was rosy about her chances of buying a home herself, but conceded she was putting more effort than was typical. I don't know if I'm just overly optimistic, but I don't know if I would say it's 100% unattainable. I still think I can do it, McDonald said. Yeah, but here's the thing. Was this expected in the past where people would go and buy a house themselves? My understanding was you'd get married at a younger age and then a family unit would buy a house. That's household income. Back then, sure, it was one person. One person was the one in the family unit that was buying the house. Now, or providing the money to the family. Now you need two people working. I just have to work harder to do it and be a bit more strategic in my spending. Or get married and buy one together. Two of you, it'll make it easier. I mean, is that just showing how old I am? Am I that old-fashioned? I guess people don't do people get married anymore? Let me know in the chat, guys. I mean, it's sad. The Albanese government wants to set up a $10 billion fund to invest in new housing projects with the aim of building 1 million new homes over 5 years. But it is yet to acquire support from the coalition or the Greens to see the legislation through the Senate. The Greens do not think the package goes far enough. Reardon said this, I mean, just imagine that, how much heat that's going to bring to the construction sector. I mean, there you go, guys. There you go. Reardon said the steps the government was taking were in the right direction, but the nation needed 1 million new homes a year to ensure the problem doesn't get worse. Federal Housing Minister Julie Collins said the housing fund would play a key part of the solution, adding it was the single biggest investment by the Commonwealth in social and affordable housing in more than a decade. We'll continue to hold constructive conversations with all interested parties to ensure this vital legislation passes the Senate as quickly as possible. Opposition housing spokesman Michael Sucker said the government should take up the coalition's policy to allow first home buyers to invest up to 40% of their superannuation to a maximum of $50,000 to purchase their first home. I think that's a fantastic idea. I 100% am behind that idea. I think Western Australia, what the Labor government is proposing there, is fantastic, where they're helping offset the cost of headworks for new developments. These are good ideas. The government having one big slush fund of money and overheating the sector, I'm not as confident of that. I mean, what do you reckon, guys? First home buyers, it's their bloody money. I'd rather people own homes. But see, this is the thing. Labor wants you all living in social housing, where the coalition want you owning a house. Because just that process, that can change your political opinion on things quite easy. You suddenly become an owner, not a dependent on the state. So it's disappointing that under this government, home ownership is no longer a priority, with first home buyers at the lowest level for over a decade, he said. Well, yeah, I mean, this is a serious issue, guys, if you have a generation not wanting to own or not feeling like they can own houses. So let's have a bit of a talk about this, everyone. So my concern with this is if we have a generation that doesn't doesn't even aspire, doesn't even see possible to owning a home, you'll get a shift away from conservative values. You'll get a shift away from self-reliance, independence, and self-respect, and it'll be people dependent on the state, blaming others, and jealousy. You'll get a shift towards the left. You'll get a shift towards collectivism, and you'll get a shift away from, well, a bright future for Australia. We need to address this. More people need to own homes. This is a really big issue. And it's not because having a house is a right. It's not. It's a privilege you need to earn. But the fact that it's not even attainable as it was because of government intervention, playing around with the numbers, overheating the market, and the fact that people are calling for more intervention means they've got no bloody idea, do they? What do you reckon, guys? Let me know your thoughts on this one. I'm liking the LNP's policy of letting people use their own money in their super to buy a house. I'd rather that than Labor's social housing. Hey, but West Australian Labor reducing headworks costs to increase supply. It's a good idea as well. If only they would collaborate. Anyway, guys, let me know your thoughts and opinions on this one. What do you reckon? Do you think we'll have a generation that never owns a house? And how will Australia be for that? As always, check out my other channels, Heise BIM and Heise Does. And if you're a fan and enjoy the content I create here, support the channel, use our referral links, buy our pocket squares, or call us if you need an architect. Take care, everyone. Have a great day, and I will see you all in the next episode of HeiseSays. Bye for now.